I want to give the floor to our special guest, Joseph Scrimshaw. You gave a great, overwhelmingly positive, but also in-depth synopsis about why you feel the way you do about Phantom Menace. And these are the kind of things that I hear people like you talk about, and I say, I need to go back and give this movie another chance. I watched it again last night. My feeling since maybe 2008 has not really changed on it all that much. So give us a scene which really illustrates to you the greatness in this movie, and maybe that shows off some of the through lines that George Lucas intended us to see.
Yeah, this was really hard for me because I could do almost any scene. There are a couple that I would be a little bit more critical of. But the thing that I really wanted to pick is basically the four-pronged finale, the battle. You have the lightsaber fight, right? That is, of course, often the thing that people like. Okay, but the lightsaber fight was awesome because if you're the kind of Star Wars fan who wants a little bit of a little bit more edge, you're a little bit more into the Sith and the badassery, you have Satan Guy with double-bladed lightsaber having an amazing fight with utterly charming Ewan McGregor, right? In really, really different choreography from the original trilogy. So people really love that. But then you also have the space battle. You also have Padme storming her own palace with blaster fire. And then on the total other end of the spectrum, you have Jar Jar and the Gungans bravely fighting, but with brave fighting that also contains slapstick, in which Jar Jar's crotch, whatever exists there, we do not know, is wounded in the battle, right? I mean, you have the absolute extremes of what people love and what people don't like about this film. And I think for me, why I picked those scenes is I think it illustrates both the things I said at the top. I think it illustrates Lucas as an indie artist who says, I know you grew up with the original trilogy, people who are seeing this in 1999, and I know you want this list of things. I don't care. I want to tell you the story that I want to tell. And that includes everything from an awesome lightsaber fight to a fun physical comedy that reminds you that Jar Jar is a total innocent who is being extremely brave in this scenario. And Lucas knows that, okay, I'm going to get pushback probably, but this is the film that I absolutely want to make. I don't care if other people think that it's got some weird tonal shifts. To me, this is my film. The other thing about it is the plot of the film definitely does have, I think, kind of two threads. It's got the invasion of Naboo, which is the main thread, and then the thread of will Anakin be trained? Is he the chosen one? All that stuff. And this is really that moment, these four battles together, that shows all these different people coming together for this common good. It is not right that a corporation that has representation in the Senate has invaded a planet. This is basically Amazon in our world just decided because they don't get enough money, nobody should be able to go in and out of Maryland. And they can't, the Senate won't act because Amazon has 2 seats in the Senate. I understand that sometimes people don't like the trade stuff, but that to me is what's going on. And this is, those four battles are all these different people, different perspectives, different needs, different wants coming together to end this injustice that the Senate can't and won't because it isn't functioning anymore.
You know, it's so fun to listen to you, because I do have trouble even now deciphering how dense. It's by far the most dense 3 paragraphs of crawl text of any Star Wars movie, in my opinion. Is when the Phantom Menace kicks off and you're like, you were so hyped to get in there and you're like, oh, okay, there's going to be some homework here. But at the end, what I love about what you said, Joseph, is that there's so much to look at. And it does what the classic Star Wars movies did too, is the climax of every classic Star Wars movies has multiple things sort of going on at the same time, or at least in A New Hope, you had Luke and Leia trying to escape the Death Star at the same time. You had Han and Chewie mistakenly charging towards a bunch of stormtroopers, which became a lot more stormtroopers with the special editions. So you always had those like, okay, this action's going on here, then we pivot back to this action here. And the highlight of anybody, I think, for Phantom Menace, Jacqueline, is going to be the lightsaber fight that does happen between Darth Maul and Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. I remember I had a teacher in high school who was a little angry at Star Wars because she just thought that the lightsabers were phallic representations of the men using them. And I remember thinking, oh, come on. And then you see Darth Maul light his double side. You see the other side come out and you're like, oh, yeah, that might be a phallic thing after all. So it's such a cool fight, though. And like Joseph said, it is such a leap forward in terms of choreography and what we had seen in Star Wars up to that point. So is that maybe a scene that also makes you feel a certain way about the movie?
Yeah, I mean, the Duel of Fates, which is the epic music that plays underneath the Darth Maul, Qui-Gon Jinn, and then eventually with Obi-Wan Kenobi fight scene, that moment is probably one of the greatest moments in Star Wars. In fact, I think that the cut that Topher Grace did, where he cut the prequels into one movie that actually made kind of sense and it was like interesting and you enjoyed it, from what I believe, I think he starts it there. Like, he doesn't even like go through the entire movie. He like starts it pretty much right there. He doesn't even include the pod racing. So, and a lot of people actually said that movie, if you watched it, which I think it's somewhere about 320 total for all of them, is actually quite, it's clippy and moves and really interesting, and shows that, Topher Grace is a quite accomplished editor. Anyway, that to me says what that scene really sort of does. I absolutely adore John Williams. There's a reason why he has been nominated for more Oscars than any composer in history and is still going strong. And I think it's an illustrative moment of how music can power incredible fight choreography as well. Like, it's just one of those incredible blendings of, I think, great film movie making. And for that, I can't really say that anything is terribly wrong with this movie altogether. The actor who did the fight choreography with that one also, Ewan McGregor talked about how long that he worked to get ready for that scene, not just the emotions behind it. But the thing I love about that scene in particular is Qui-Gon Jinn dies up against a very formidable opponent. And if you remember from the scene, he actually is meditating before he goes into that epic battle. And that is the way of the Jedi. That is actually the way the Jedi should embark on it, to find peace, to find serenity, to find balance in a moment before you go into this action. But Obi-Wan Kenobi, actually, the rage and the grief that he feels from Qui-Gon being murdered is what allows him to defeat Darth Maul. And that is against what the Jedi would actually believe. And so it's already, I think, positioning this story in a way that doesn't always vibe with the mythology. And I think that is a part of The Phantom Menace and the entire prequels, which, because George Lucas created them, borrowed them, whichever you want to say, he felt that he could break the rules in the same way a classically trained pianist, when they play jazz, is going to break all of the rules that they learn. But you have to know the rules inside out to know where to break them. And I don't know if George Lucas respected his own rules as much as other people, because he'd lived with them for 20 years. He'd lived through decades of interviews and people talking about them. And essentially him knowing that that was going to be the first line of his obit, no matter what else happened, is, this is the guy that created Star Wars. And so it was almost like a part of him, like his finger, and you can't really look at your finger with the reverence that somebody else would. And so when he was breaking these rules, like he did in that scene, even the times when it worked, if I look back on it now, it's nonsensical. And I don't necessarily think that when you add all of that up, it makes it. And also on top of that, because of the thing that George Lucas has always done, which is plots are minimal, style is maximum, that doesn't always work when people have been waiting for 20 years. They want a story that they're invested in. And he was invested in it, but not necessarily the fans.
I remember the movie going experience and just thinking like, oh, now I actually have to sit down and watch a movie. Like, it didn't matter what the movie was. It was, you're just so excited to be there and you've been waiting so long. And now it's like, oh no, I still have to just sit there and have this story told to me for 2 hours. And so my favorite part of Duel of the Fates is actually, seeing the doors open and seeing Darth Maul, ignite his lightsaber is pretty awesome. But it is in that moment where Obi-Wan, I don't know that we're breaking, at least in my opinion, I never saw that as breaking the rules of the Jedi. I saw Obi-Wan sort of tapping into, towing the line of the dark side. I look at the dark side sort of like the Field of Dreams out of bounds, where if you step over this line, you become old Moonlight Graham. And so Luke Skywalker had towed that line many a time, including in the the climactic clash between him and his father in Return of the Jedi. And then seeing Obi-Wan, where you have those weird force fields that come up every so often, seeing Darth Maul just pace back and forth and just staring down Obi-Wan is just so cool. And seeing Obi-Wan just summon, really, he's trying to summon rage. He's trying to summon anything that is not just blind fear. Obi-Wan's just basically trying to not poop his pants. So I think that the Force is cool. It's like, hey, if you got to go a little to the dark side here just to defeat this guy, just make sure you don't crap yourself before you defeat Darth Maul and you cut him in half. But the scene that really I still think about... Go ahead, Joseph, please.
Can I real quick, before you get into your scene, can I offer an opinion on Obi-Wan's level of rage and or need to poop his pants? For me, I feel like, and it's totally, as Obi-Wan Kenobi himself would say, I consider it a point of view thing. I don't think this point of view is right. I think it's my point of view. My interpretation of that scene is he is tending toward the rage, which isn't good, that he is acting out of, you killed my master, I want to kill you. And the choreography looks cool when they spin and flip, but it leads him to a vulnerability. And it is that moment where he is pressing in with anger on Maul, and Maul gets the best of him and gives him the force push, and he flips down. And I think he takes a moment when he's hanging there, and that's where he becomes a Jedi in that moment of he is calming down and he is thinking about the environment and his surroundings. And Maul isn't. Maul's just slashing at him, mocking him for having fallen. And Obi-Wan only wins because he does what Obi-Wan always does when he wins, which is he calms down and he becomes more aware of the environment. He remembers that Qui-Gon's lightsaber is sitting there. And I feel like when he actually defeats Maul, it's because he has calmed down and is being more Jedi-like.